You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. And we're off and running, as they say. Let me give a little bit more juice on there. Actually, I don't have my monitor on, so okay, maybe I juiced it up a little too much. Here we go again, girls. What's my weakness? Men. Okay, then. Welcome to Me and Paranormal You. This is a third-year bonus. If you've never listened to the program before, this is an episode in which the host, that'd be me, Ryan Singer, the host and creator, the proprietor of this podcast, I will talk by myself for the duration, however long this episode lasts. Now, that is not to say that we will not have guests, because every once in a while some surprise guests pop in. There's a guy named Todd who shows up every once in a while. There's a guy named Diner Dan who shows up. There are other characters that I cannot remember their names. They show up as well. Guests. I shouldn't say characters. I should say guests. They're real people. Yeah, man. Okay, Todd. You can't come in the first 90 seconds. I mean, you can because you did, but I mean, this is what I live with every day. I mean, you get a glimpse of it here and you listen to the show, but this is what I live with every day in my head. You know, all these people competing for attention. Wanting to be the dominant voice. What do I want to tell you today? There's a lot to talk about. First of all, if you're over on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Ryan Singer, just go search for Ryan Singer, Me and Paranormal You. You know, my true mappy heads out there, those hardcore mappy heads. I don't know what to call people who listen to this program and have for years. Mappy heads, my mapsters. The people, thank you for the support over there. I'm putting up some good stuff over there, I think. You get commercial-free episodes. You get exclusive video and photos. I put up some photos of my time in Florida. I'm going to talk about that. That's what we're really going to talk about here, at least to get us kicked off. There's lots of things going on. I can't begin to explain. I will. Actually, I can begin to explain because I will at least try to begin to explain. Can I fully explain everything that's going on in the world of the paranormal? No. Can I fully encapsulate all of the projects that I am working on currently and that I have in the crock pot for you to hopefully ingest and enjoy? Yes, I can do that. I am immersed in a deep research project that has been ongoing for a decade now. All things paranormal, esoteric, strange, unknown, supernatural, mystical. That is what I do here. I do stand-up comedy. If you've never listened to the program, I'm a stand-up comedian, and I have been for 20 plus years. And I've been full-time making my living doing that for the most part for the last, 15 years, 12 to 15 years, whatever it is. But my other passion is the paranormal, the unknown, because of unexplainable experiences I have had. One of which kicked off this whole thing was many years ago I dated a woman who could shapeshift. You can go back and listen to Experience 76. I'm not going to go into the details of that. As you can imagine, after 10 years and 700 plus episodes, I have talked about this enough for the people who have listened to the show already. Experience number 76. Interview with a shapeshifter. Is it the best podcast interview you will ever hear? I don't know. I don't know if it is. But I got to tell you, I mean, on the Mount Rushmore of episodes of this program, just from people reaching out and telling me, it's up there. At least for this program, it is one of the most popular. I would tell you, because I can look at those numbers. Also, when I smoke DMT, it's called the DMT Couch Sessions. I smoke DMT and we record it, so you can hear that episode as well with my buddy Shane Moss. That was years ago as well. There's been other ones. I got more great interviews coming. I got an interview I'm doing tomorrow that I'm really excited about. I've got things in the pipeline. I've got fishing lines out into the world of the paranormal. Hopefully we'll get some bites. So, yeah. Anyway, and also, am I a maniac? Some people probably think I'm a maniac. And is this program, this podcast, does it have elements of comedic flavor and flair? I would like to think so, because that's just who I am as a person. And this isn't going to be like a lot of really intense, atmospheric tones happening during this podcast. You're not going to hear me being like, and that's when I knew the truth was right around this corner. Stamps.com, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Dong, 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 dong. It's not going to be like that. I don't think I don't look at the paranormal as a Monster Energy drink can like so many people do, but as is their purview, and as is why it's probably become so popular, the marketing of the paranormal. I don't know who the paranormal's marketing team is, but they love fluorescent yellow, green, don't they? And black. They love it. They love it. And hey, I'm a fluorescent guy. I like it too. Okay, moving on. I was in Florida for 6 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, 6 days and 5 nights. You need to go back and listen to, I'm giving you so much homework if you're new to the show. You need to go back and Encounter with a Sasquatch. It's a third-year bonus where I detail an encounter I had while on a paranormal expedition, in which we were filming what was to be a documentary film, which has never seen the light of day because there's been all kinds of problems with that. Nonetheless, it started the beginning of a beautiful friendship with the people that live on the property, Bill and Carolyn. And boy, oh boy, is this story bonkers. Is it one of the best paranormal stories you can probably hear that is true life? I would argue it certainly is. It's one of the most compelling and interesting stories that I'm aware of, and I've had the distinct pleasure of, having to experience a little bit of it. I'm not part of their story, but they are part of mine. So I went back there to the place where I have never been more scared in my entire life. In 2019, we did 5 days, 4 nights, we did 6 days and 5 nights back then too. Just investigating the property. I think I used to think it was 40 acres. I think it's like 25 acres. Anyway, all woods. And the most terrifying thing in my life happened to me. I was screamed at by some kind of, yelled at by some kind of monster, creature, whatever. And it wrecked me. And I still have a therapist that I talked to today, that I went and sought out after my experience on their property. I mean, a grown man sleeping with his lights on in his bedroom in my apartment in Los Angeles, surrounded by people, for a year. I could not sleep with my lights out for a year because of that experience. You can go back and listen. Encounter with a Sasquatch is what I called it. Was it a Sasquatch? Spoiler, I'm not so sure. Will we ever know? Probably not. Now, I need to get hypnotized and taken back to that moment, but that sounds awful because I've experienced so much fear. Nonetheless, I've been back to that property 2 different times, and each for one night, or I'd spend one night there. The first time I went back, the sun went down and I was like, let's get inside, please. I don't like being here. The second time I went back was about a year later, and it was less fear that I experienced. And it was a very nice time hanging out with Bill and Carolyn. This time was the third time I'd been back, and I went back for 6 days and 5 nights. So obviously I didn't run away with my tail between my legs. Did I ever step foot outside on the property in those 6 days? No, I'm just kidding. I did. We had a wonderful time. I'm down there working on a project. And I mean, I could tell you what the project is, I guess. It's not, but I hate talking about a project that is such an early stage development that you're not going to see it for a while. So it feels kind of like I feel like I'm kind of like teasing this out unintentionally. I'm just trying not to, There's lots of things that still need to be done for this project to even be close to being completed or having all the things that we need to make it. But you can probably figure it out. I'll tell you this. I'm working on a project that is not a paranormal investigation. Okay? I will say this. I believe that the stories and the experiences of Carolyn and also Bill to a certain degree are so profound that the world needs to hear them. So that's what we're doing. And if you're over on the Patreon page, or actually if you listen to last week's 30 episode, I only put out one last week because we were working so much. You'll be able to hear. It's me. It's an excerpt from me interviewing Carolyn, and something weird happened during the interview, like 2:00 in the afternoon. Bright as a light bulb out, and boom, something weird happens. Not a big surprise. That's not the only thing weird that happened during our recorded interviews. I've got upwards of, gosh, I could look on my phone right now, but I've probably got, I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say I have at least 8 hours of Carolyn telling me stories. And we didn't even get them all. That's insane to me. I mean, you can probably figure out what we're doing or what I'm helping her do. So, like I said, a lot of work needs to be done on that, but the plan is to have Carolyn put out an autobiography. I just told you, that's the plan. Okay, that's it, not some big secret. I don't know why I was like, I don't know if I should tell you, but it's just, it's not close. There's so much work that needs to be done. And I've got these other projects I'm working on. If you listen to the program, you know that I'm currently editing 2 different paranormal documentaries, which is just a lot of heavy lifting. Now I'm writing, helping someone write a biography. There's a lot, not to mention these other things that are going on. I want to talk about this property, though, and I want to talk about the stories to a certain degree, just so you have an idea. On the show, I have talked for a while now, and I'm not sure how long, and it just keeps getting reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, and I don't think this is my idea, right? I'm not the first person that ever came up with this. People who experience extreme paranormal phenomena or have tapped into somehow unwittingly and unknowingly at times intense paranormal abilities, unexplained powers, etc. Oftentimes these people have experienced great trauma and grief in their life. And I believe that there's a connection there. And I don't think that you have to experience like the greatest of all traumas to have paranormal abilities. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is so many of the people that I've met over the last decade that have sat down and have conversations with me, there's, you pick up, you start to understand that there's a pattern. And this is a lot of data, as a scientist would say. But I'm an idealist, not a materialist. But we can still, speak in those terms. And because it's more relatable to people probably. The materialistic point of view as opposed to the idealistic. So it's a lot of data. And I have noticed certain themes popping up over the years. And it's just because I'm not some, I'm not some anthropologist, right? Or something. I'm just paying attention to the things I'm doing. That's basically it. You do something long enough, you're going to start to understand patterns that show up in the work you do. That's just the way it is. Like I understand patterns in comedy very much. I've been doing stand-up comedy for over 20 years. I understand patterns and cycles that happen in comedy, and we're witnessing. We've been through a couple pretty drastic cycles in the last 7 years, even from one cycle shifting to another, and it's interesting stuff. If you like stand-up comedy, this isn't a stand-up comedy podcast, so I won't get into that. But there are certain similarities that people share. And, one of them, unfortunately, is, trauma and grief. And if you read UFO of God, which I keep recommending, the Chris Bledsoe book, it's a beautiful, incredible read. And you notice that is there as well. Trauma and grief is there. Big time. It's a tragic tale, yet simultaneously uplifting and beautiful. It's perseverance, right? And it's the perseverance of the human spirit, of the empathetic soul. And these are real people experiencing difficult things and realities. And we have choices to make as people. We all do. I've often said that I'm obsessed with the revelations that can be made, or the information that can be gathered from extended periods of hardship. And specifically, the test of one's mettle, mettle. What is the true nature of one's character? And anybody can be a great person when everything's going their way. But when everything is going against them, one would say, some people would argue, that true colors shine through. And that's not to say people don't have moments of weakness and slippages of character, because I'm certain that every single person would fall under that category. Every single person alive would fall under that category. No one's special enough to be excluded from that list, by the way. If you're listening, well, I think I might. No, you too. And this might be a slippage right now. Maybe a slippage of like a spike in arrogance, potentially, is what's happening. But if we want to call that one, and I think we would. But you can see what a person's true character is. You can, and I don't know where this comes from, right? Nature versus nurture. I just saw that T-shirt at Target. There's a Target here in Dayton, Ohio, that doesn't have a clearance rack in the men's clothing section, and I'm just like, what? I'm confused. Like, what is it? Because we still get paid more than women in the workplace, which is for the same job, which is crazy that's still real. Is that where women make up the wage gap in the clearance section of Target in the clothing? The answer is no. They would need a clearance section in everything, and the things in the clearance section would need to be just as good as everything else nonetheless, I'm not going to get sucked into this rabbit hole of my own design. So a person's character can be shown through prolonged periods of hardship and grief, trauma, etc. And empathy, oftentimes, the accumulation or the buildup, the stockpiling of such an enormous amount of empathy, oftentimes is resultant from these long periods of hardship. And people who have been through hell and back multiple times typically seem to be more empathetic and more forgiving, which I believe is a result of a higher level of empathy, or of a practicing of empathy on the regular, on the daily, which to me is, it's such an amazing, incredible attribute and phenomena. I can almost describe it like this. In movies, let me think about how I'm going to say this, because I want to make sure I get it right. But there's, especially when you're talking about an oppressed group of people, When those people are finally able to gain equal footing or equal ground, at least in some degree, at least on paper, many of the people who were doing the oppressing are worried about stopping that oppressing because of the retribution that they fear will come. And why would they not fear that, right? Because that is what they think they would do if they were the person they were oppressing, right? It's this fear of self. It's always a fear of self. And specifically in movies, oftentimes, the oppressed person often has such a deep well of personal grace, which I think is part of this empathy thing, right? That they don't seek vengeance, retribution. And these moments are so powerful specifically in movies and television or stories you hear. When that person forgives or lets it go, it's like, can you imagine the amount of grace and strength one must have and character to behave in such a way? To take the high road is so hard for so many of us so often. When the parents of a murdered child publicly address the killer in court and say, "We have forgiven you," is there anything that will make you cry faster outside of a Pixar movie than that moment? Whew, those are profound. So this is kind of what I'm talking about here when it comes to these prolonged periods of hardship will show a person's character. And oftentimes, the people who have had such an easy time or have been winning the whole time and then suddenly have a moment where they're not winning, they show themselves pretty quickly. And there's plenty of ultra-modern examples that one could reference here. But let's not get political, shall we? You can see it unfolding before you right now. Now, there are groups of people oftentimes who are oppressed or in different ways and in different times, square off against one another, and that's unfolding now, and it's tragic and utterly heartbreaking. And it makes many people lose hope and feel like there's nothing that can turn us back to the light. And I would say, well, let's do our damnedest to not give up, if we can do that. And I don't want to speak for other people who have experienced things that I've never experienced. That's not my job. But when it comes to experiencing prolonged grief, trauma, and hardship, there's also something about prolonged periods of paranormal experiences. And what does that do to a person? And what does that create inside the person's mind? And furthermore, what are the belief systems that begin to form around someone who is always experiencing high strangeness? We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to get more into that with some specific, maybe some specific examples, about some of the people that I've been lucky enough to come in contact with over the last decade who have shared their story with me and I've been able to spend time with. And just a reminder, you can get all these episodes and chats commercial free over at patreon.com/Ryan Singer for $3 a month. That's $3 a month. How cheap is that? If everybody who listens to this program was joined up on the Patreon, I would, who knows, I might do 3 episodes a week. Although, is that too much? We'll talk about it later. Okay, and I'm back. I was going to say we're back, and we are. Okay, we are. Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, we are, Todd. We're back. So, I forgot to lube the pipe. Okay, there we go. I got the whistle wet. So, if someone experiences long periods of paranormal phenomena, what does that do? Well, I think first and foremost, I think it could have a couple different effects. One of them could be that someone shuts down and shuts it out. That's one option. Another option is they change their belief system if they were non-believing of such a thing beforehand. And there's an adjustment period for sure, but I think after a while it becomes part of life. Specifically when I'm talking about Bill and Carolyn down in Florida, they've lived on this property for a long time. And this stuff has been happening for a long time. And it's part of, they just live there. You know what I mean? It's just part of life. And then, there's visitors, there's people who drop in like me and other people investigate. They've had so many different investigators out there. The very first episode of Finding Bigfoot was filmed on their property. Les Stroud, Survivor Man, has even been out there. Jeff Meldrum, who's a well-known, iconography, with the study of footprints and things like that. He's been out there multiple times, or a couple times, I believe. All kinds of people have been out there, specifically in the Bigfoot world and the cryptozoology world. There's been government people out there for long periods of time studying what's going on out there. And, we're all just kind of dropping in. But they live there. And now it's just their life. You know what I mean? They don't hesitate. They going outside. It's just a thing that has become normal. It becomes normalized. And I think they're a good microcosm. They're a good microcosmic example of what the world will do when all this phenomena is accepted and more prevalent and more real for everyone. There will be a period where, whoa, what's going on here, right? For a handful of people, I'm sure. And then even the people who are most resistant to accepting this reality as being true eventually will do that. And, because I mentioned earlier, you can shut yourself off to it and, block it out. But you can only do that for so long when it's everywhere around you all the time. And that's just living in a state of denial at that point. And I don't think that serves anyone. But what happens is we all accept this as being true, and then we integrate this new experience and this new reality into our worldview. And then we go on, because like I've said before, it doesn't matter how many Sasquatch or Oma or Bigfoot is running around, or ghosts or aliens or UFOs. You still need to eat, sleep, and drop a deuce. Those things don't change. The basic fundamentals of your life, of all of our lives, will not change. We still need to eat, sleep, and shaija. Okay? So that's not going to change. Eventually, we integrate all this stuff into our lives, and boom, now we're back. Just to living, right? And then we'll all be fascinated by something else we don't understand, or that there'll be something else that the skeptic will say is not real, is not true. Maybe like wishes coming true through manifestation or birthday cake candles. Or they're gonna, maybe then we'll finally get to see Santa. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that we'll move on to something else. I'll have to find something else that I can believe in that a bunch of people don't. Like as if it's just like a part of my identity and it's not a real thing, right? But here's what we have, specifically with when you want to talk about whether it's Chris Bledsoe or you want to talk about my friend Carolyn, you have from a very early age, you have traumatic events that are shaping a person's worldview. They're heart and their soul and their thoughts. And luckily for the rest of us, empathy building is one of the big things that starts happening. And unexplained abilities can be difficult for someone to live with. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I've got, unexplained, or shall I rather say, unaccepted abilities. But when it comes to, specifically Carolyn, this isn't new for her. There is something specifically going on with her that is related to all of this. And do I want to say it's a cause and effect thing? Not necessarily. I'm not an expert in any of this stuff when it comes to being able to tell someone why their life is a certain way. I don't think anyone's an expert in that necessarily, right? Because you have to live a person's life to be able to know why their life is a way. And that's the thing. We don't get to live other people's lives for them. But, walk a mile in their shoe we may do, but live their life forever, well, I don't think we're that clever. So, and then who would be living your life if you were living someone else's? It's just like a game of musical chairs. Some might say that's kind of like what reincarnation is for, but that's all. We can get into that later. We can talk about that another time. Would you switch, though? I mean, like, there's, it's been done on television before, what is it, The Parent Trap? Is that the Parent Trap? Where the daughter and the mom switch or something? That's just an uncomfortable situation when you start getting down to the nitty-gritty details of a thing like that. So, what we're dealing with here is near-death experiences as well. And these just keep coming up, don't they? And if you go back and listen to the interview I did with Mario Creston, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, whenever it was, we talk about this a little bit, and we start getting into what is the energetic event that a near-death experience creates, and does it leave an imprint, specifically in a physical location? And not only that, but in the person who experienced it. And I am of the mind to believe that not only does a near-death experience possibly curate a higher intensity of a paranormal phenomena in one's life who experiences the NDE, but I'm also of the belief that potentially, we need a lot more data probably. And now listen to me, I'm over here, Mr. Science. I'm like science beaker guy. Science, science, science. There's something about science. Okay, well, who's this? Is this the sassy scientist coming in? Let me tell you something, mister. Oh, wow, he's a sassy scientist. And, I'm not, and if you're a scientist, I'm not trying to disparage. I mean, the sassy scientist just kind of has that voice. And I'll tell you another thing. I have many beakers, I'll have you know. Okay, sassy scientist, very good. I don't have time to talk to you right now because I was kind of on a thing. Very well. Okay. Okay. Very well, he said. Okay, so I believe that a near-death experience, an NDE, I'm all about NDEs and OBEs, you know what I mean? Like, I should just get that tattoo. NDE on the right arm, OBE on the left forearm. So, what was I saying? Before Sassy Scientist, who's a new character, never before heard, a new person, a new guest, I should say. Oh, yes. I believe that an NDE can create, something in the person who experiences it, obviously. And there's many cases, and I've talked to people on this program that have experienced such a thing. One of them is Sarah Goff, who, oh God, can we get Sarah Goff back on the program, please? Thank you very much. You're welcome. My shaman, who had an NDE, or who died and came back to life. Basically, I think that's different than a near-death experience. When you die and come back to life, I guess it's the same thing. I guess we're classifying it under NDE. Anyway, I think it can create an energetic event in the location, and it can change the way that reality is experienced in that specific spot, and it has kind of maybe a ripple effect, or it could potentially, draw people to its location for high-level synchronistic events. And I think Mario and I talked about this during his interview, and if we didn't, we at least brought it up, even if we didn't flesh it all the way out. And again, this is a new theory, so just to keep track of the theories I'm working on that I think that I've decided to believe in. This is one of them. The near-death experiences create some kind of energetic event in a physical location where they occur that affects the nature of the way reality is experienced, and or draws people who are in a state, an energetic, or have an energetic imprint or frequency, who are more willing to tap into the information or some kind of synchronistic event in that spot. Now, that was pretty convoluted, and some might say that's word salad. And woo-woo, wild one, yes, I am. And the other thing I'm kind of really believing, I've decided to believe in, is that portals are sentient. And so our near-death experience is creating portals, and therefore is it a birthing event of a sentient phenomenon known as what we call portals. And man, are portals hot right now, or what? Portals have become very, very hot in the last 2 or 3 years. And I got to tell you, I don't know who Portal's publicist is, but they're killing it. They're killing it because everything's a portal now. And I believe portals are sentient, or I believe. Let me clarify that a little bit. I believe that there is a chance that. Not all of them, maybe, but I do think, there is such a thing as a sentient portal. One might argue that this is represented. I'm just coming up with this right now, but one might argue that the sentient portal idea has been understood, at least in some kind of knowing way, in the human mind, in the psyche, in the subconscious, for a long, long time, and has been represented as characters and stories and folklore and mythology. Maybe the boat, the boatman who crossing souls over from the living to the dead, that's a sentient portal. So I might argue here today, and I don't know why I can't remember the damn boatman's name, or there's not just one, So that's just a quick example of something I just thought of, and I probably will never remember. But yeah, so sentient portals are real. And I mean, there's a high level intelligence to, at least according to some reports, from people who have been at locations that are claimed to or known to have portals. There is an avoidance. There is a craftiness. There is a cleverness. Clever girl. To these portals that are acting with intelligence. Imagine a smart door. These are different. I'm not talking about like the sliding glass doors that open because there's a camera thing or a motion thing attached to them, so they open when that happens. Because if that were true, I would have walked through a portal multiple times last week on this property, because I was in the location where one of these portals was, and I walked through there multiple times, and I've got some photos, and I'll post them over on the Patreon. Anyway, was I ready to walk through a portal at the time that I did that? Not necessarily. To be quite honest, I didn't think that far ahead. So if it would have opened and I would have entered, even if it was unwittingly, oh my, this would be a different episode right now, wouldn't it? If I'd even be here, which I'm sure I would be. I'm not worried about that. I'm never going to be disappeared. At least I don't think so. You got to be smarter than me to get disappeared, I would argue. I just, you got to know stuff. I can't remember. I don't know. I don't have. People tell me secrets because I always forget them. I'm a good guy to tell a secret to because, in a few years, I'm probably not going to remember the secret you told me, unless it's a doozy. You know what I mean? Like what your favorite color of peanut M&M is. I'll never forget that. Let me know what your favorite color of peanut M&M is, and if it's the wrong one, I'll just block you. I mean, there's a certain color of M&M that you just, if you eat it, there's something. No, I'm just kidding. There is no bad color of M&M. Actually, I don't subscribe to that. So there is an interesting correlation, in my opinion. And I think it's playing itself out, and it's been proven through this, grief, trauma, hardship, and the, definitely the empathy building, but also the paranormal abilities and experiences. And at the top of that list is the near-death experience, dying and coming back to life, etc. The NDE, I believe, is probably, if I had to guess, at the top of that list that can cause that, or that is that will result in potentially. And that's not saying everyone who's had a near-death experience all of a sudden now is super tapped into the paranormal. But I would be interested, actually, to know the answer to that. And I don't know if anyone's ever done I'm sure someone's had to have done a study. Like Dean Radin or somebody has had to. I got to get Dean Radin on this show. Are you kidding me? I've reached out. I've sent an email. We'll see if I hear back to Dr. Roger Nelson from the Global Consciousness Project. I want to get Dr. Nelson back on the show because they're doing new things with the Global Consciousness Project. They've kind of transitioned into a new phase of the project, and I think it would be exciting to have him on the program to talk about that, and also talk about his work with IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, that formerly was headquartered in Petaluma, California. And it was so heartbreaking when I found out that they're not there anymore, or the campus is now, transitioned into something else, because I got friends in Petaluma, and I was like, I got to go there. I got to just see if they'll let me live there. Anyway, Petaluma is beautiful if you've never been up there. So it's kind of by San Francisco, that area. So, but yeah, we got to get Dr. Nelson back on here. Fingers crossed. Send the vibe out. Send the intention that he needs to come back on the show. What a great chat that we had previously. It was about 4 or 5 years ago now. Wow. A lot to catch up on the Global Consciousness Project and random number generators and et cetera. The eggs, as they call them. So, because I really want to get into it with like somebody like Dr. Nelson, not get into it, you know what I mean? Start digging in about, and it could be such a stupid question for him, but I want to talk to him about idealism. And I'd be really curious to know if someone like that with a PhD would consider themselves an idealist. I think there's a chance. Maybe, we're going to find out. I'm going to put that out there. It's going to happen. So I think someone like Dean Radin or somebody like that has probably done. And if you're listening and you know of such a study, I'd love to hear from you about that, and maybe even have you on the program to chat about it. But how many people who have had a near-death experience, who have died and been brought back to life, are now more tapped into, or at least believe they are, to some kind of what we'd consider paranormal ability, or experience paranormal or unknown phenomena, when previously they maybe did not, or maybe didn't even believe, or maybe didn't even think about it. God, I'd love to know that. I mean, I would even subscribe to a scientific journal to read that article. Are you listening, sciencejournal.com? Or... But that's not a journal, it's a website. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me tell you. Okay, the Sassy Scientist was going to start. I need to know how many papers or articles the Sassy Scientist has even had published. I'll have you know, over 15. Oh, wow. And you're starting to sound like Dr. Darren Cornwall all of a sudden, Sassy Scientist. We got to straighten up we got to pick a voice over here. So, anyway, yes. So we've got, when I was in Florida this time, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to lie to you about this. I will be honest. Did I sleep really well while I was there for 5 nights? Not exactly. I'll tell you what happened the very first night. It's just it I'm not going to lie to you, it creeped me out. So I'm in one of the guest rooms, and since the original expedition in 2019, Bill and Carolyn have made a lot of changes to their property. Specifically, they used to have these big floodlights that were motion censored or motion activated. They have now they have cameras everywhere, right? They have a ton of cameras. So if anything is moving on that property, they're specifically by the house, they're going to know about it and they're going to catch it because they're night vision cameras, security cameras. They have a camera on the initial gate that's way down from the house to even like start getting into the real meat of the property. Then they have a second camera on the second gate, and then they have a third camera on the fenced gate that you have to get in to get into the house, right? I'm kind of describing this like it sounds like Fort Knox, doesn't it? And so there's 3 gates that one must pass through before you can even get to the house. Whenever one of these cameras is activated by motion, there is an alarm that goes off inside the house. Each gate has a specific tone sequence type thing, a ring, if you want to call it that, its own ringer, right? So whenever there's motion by any of these cameras, they will all go off with their own rings. Very specific sounding rings, so you know which gate the motion is happening at. Does that make sense? I think it does. The closest gate to the house, the fence gate, to get into the, walk down the walk to get into the house, that has a ring like a default cell phone ringer, right? I think we all know that one because we've heard it go off in like movie theaters or at the mall or we're on the bus at a coffee shop, etc. It's the default phone ring. That's the noise that goes off when something is moving at the front gate, at the door at the front gate. Like something's opening the gate, something's right by the gate, something has passed through the gate. That sound goes off, right? That ring. The very first night I'm there. Now, Bill works super early in the morning. He wakes up super early. So he's kind of, he goes to bed before everybody. Carolyn follows close behind. It's maybe 10 o'clock, 10:15. This was on a Sunday, right? Because I got there, we had some food, watched the Cincinnati Bengals on the football game, and then watched a little bit of the World Series, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, so it's like 10 o'clock. Everybody's going to bed. So I'm like, okay, I'll go into the guest room. I'm not going to, I won't stay out in the living room. And so there's a TV in there and stuff. And so I turn on the TV. I'm watching the baseball game. Kind of got the computer out on the bed or whatever. In the bed, the way the bed is set up. Now, keep in mind, this guest room is kind of like the front left corner of the house. So on one wall is a window that faces out to the front yard to where that gate is. And then on the other wall that runs into it perpendicular is a window that is on the side of the house, right? So it's like the corner of the house. And that's a walkway to the back deck that overlooks the ravine into the backyard, into the woods, to where one of the portals is. So the bed is backed up in a way to where the head of the bed is by the window that's by the walkway on the side of the house to get to the back deck. So if you hear something like from behind your head from that window, it's because something is walking on the walkway on the side of the house, right? In the middle of the night. Which I don't know. I'll get to that later. So it's, pretty late, right? I'm a night owl. So it's, it's getting late. It's like 11:45, right? And that's kind of early for me. But I'm like, you know what? I need to try to fall asleep. We got a lot of work to do this week because I'm going to wake up in the morning. We're going to have coffee. And then I'm going to start just interviewing Carolyn. And we're going to do that all day long for the next 5 days, while Bill's at work. I'm just going to have Carolyn telling me stories, and I'm going to be recording them. And then I'm going to be using these to help shape her story for the book. So I've got the TV on. It's around 11:45 at this point. Around 11:30, 15 minutes before this, the TV stops working. It just says signal completely lost, right? It's just gone. It won't work. The cable goes out. And keep in mind, we're in the middle of nowhere, right? So I'm like, okay, this might happen, right? Where the cable can go out. It's just weird when you're in a place where you're kind of already, a little spooked out, and you're kind of like the only one still awake in the middle of nowhere. It's super dark out there. And the TV kind of giving you some nice background noise so you don't just keep listening for noises outside the windows. And then the TV, you're just da-da-da-da-da-da. Signal lost. For the next 10 minutes, I try to get the TV to work. It won't work. So I finally just turn it off. And I'm just kind of on my phone, on my laptop. I'm like, I'm not going to watch anything on my laptop. I'll just, and I got a lamp on by the bed. That's the only light on in the room. And I'm like, you know what, I took a sleep aid, and then I'm like, you know what, I'll just turn this lamp off. I've been very excited to get back here and really just kind of move through all of this once and for all, right? I'm just going to do that. I don't have to worry. I've been here twice before. Nothing weird happened. Nothing's going to happen tonight. I love and respect anything that is out there, and I appreciate it presenting itself to me previously in a way that terrified me. And I have no intention of wanting to be scared, and I'm not asking for that again. And I'm not going to say you couldn't, but I'm going to say we just don't need that. Thank you very much. So I'm setting that intention, right? And I'm communicating with my thought and my consciousness to all the, to the things that are out there, letting them know, hey, you got me really good. We don't need to do that again. Please and thank you, and I love you. I'm actually saying that, and I'm thinking it, right? So I reach 11:45, and I click the lamp off. It's got one of those little twisters, right? So I twist the lamp off, and I'm not kidding you. I'm going to make 2 noises, and this is how quick it happened. The first noise is me clicking the lamp off. The second noise that I'm going to make is when this thing happened, and I'll tell you what that is in a second, but just this is how quick it happened. Immediately, right? You got that, right? It was just boom, boom, in sequence, in immediate sequence with no downtime. I flip the dang lamp off, and then the alarm noise for the front gate, the gate that my window is facing about 20 feet away from my window is this gate out in the front yard. The alarm goes off. The second I turn that lamp off to where we have total darkness in the guest room for me to sleep, because guess what? I'm a big boy. I don't need a light on, blah, 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 blah. The dang alarm for the gate goes off, meaning something just moved by the gate. Needless, I'm chilled out right now. I've got goosebumps right now telling you about this. And I'm just like, no, right? And I immediately turn the lamp back on. I text Carolyn because she's like, if you need me, it doesn't matter what time it is, anything happens, call me, we'll leave the bedroom door open so we can hear you if anything happens, because they're the best people you've ever met in your life. And they want you to be comfortable in their home. So I just text Carolyn, alarm just went off, ? But text message isn't going to wake her up. And I really kind of didn't want to wake her up. I was like, if she sees this, she sees this. But if not, no big deal. I'll just have to battle through it. And so I immediately turned the lamp back on. And I'm just like, no. cable just went out. 10 minutes later, the alarm goes off. Now I'm thinking to myself, is something out there cutting the cable and then coming to just creep me out? Is this what this is all about? Is this really? Is this what's going to happen right now? And so then you know how it is. When you're really scared, you start spiraling into like, oh, you start thinking of all the worst case scenarios, the most terrifying thing that could ever happen to you. Now I start envisioning these, it starts bashing, it breaks through the window. And I should tell you that there are shutters. There are shutters on the inside of the windows at this house. And yes, that means exactly what you think it means. They have shutters on the inside of their windows. Because after years of having experiences, they're like, Carolyn was like, we need shutters and I want them on the inside so we can lock them from the inside. All of the windows have these really thick wooden shutters on the inside of them. And the other thing that they have there is all the doors are super locked, and also they have those like door jams also put in, those sticks that like, keep the doors closed. Even when the lock breaks, you can't get through the stick that's like got the rubber stoppers on the end of it. All the doors, all the windows, nothing's getting into this place, right? And so, cut to a couple hours later, probably maybe 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, after believing I'm hearing all kinds of stuff outside in the yard, and specifically behind my head, eventually I think my nervous system just completely gives up, shuts down, and I fall asleep out of exhaustion. I wake up the next day, I don't know, maybe 10 o'clock, and I'm fine. Nothing happened to me. So the next night, I hear some shit. I hear some stuff. Keeps me up. I decide to leave one of the lamps on that's at the front of the room by the TV instead of the nightstand. Because as soon as it went dark again, the cable went out. As soon as I went full dark and just kept the TV on, maybe on mute, cable goes out. And I'm just like, oh my God. This is happening. This is happening again. So, long story less long. I did never sleep with the lights dark now. I never slept with the lights completely out in that room. I couldn't do it, dude. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. And I'm not ashamed of that. But I did, I slept I did sleep, progressively as the week went on, I slept better and better. And I got to tell you, I had a hell of a time. It was really, really fun. They're some of the best people, and they're so gracious and such great hosts, and so much good food. Good times, such good times. And these stories are incredible. There are stories that I forgot about. Specifically, I'm going to tease this one a little bit. There's a story about the first time a psychic ever came to the property, and immediately started just listing off all of these things that Bill and Carolyn had already been told were happening at the property. What's interesting is the psychic was like, you know what? I have to come back to this property. I have to come back. Later, when reached out to, I have to get the specific details on this from Carolyn. Later, when reached out to come back, because Carolyn wanted her to come back because she had such a, she's like, she's very good. Basically, she was told she can't come back. One way or the other. I gotta get the details on this specific, or get them right. But basically, this psychic, someone told this psychic not to go back to their property. Who is that someone? Well, that's yet to be determined. Thank you for listening to the program. That's going to do it for this 30-year bonus. RyanSarenComedy.com. I got tour dates. The Goofball Run is happening December 4th through the 17th. We got all kinds of dates, starting in Biloxi, then going to Bryan. We're going all over the place. It ends in Fort Collins. We're in Trinidad. We're in Manitou Springs. We're in Cheyenne. We're all over the place, and I can't wait to do it. Gilbert Lowland, Jeff Tate, Dave Stone, and me. It's gonna be goofy, y'all, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be one hell of a comedy show. So I hope you come see it. Tickets are for sale. Thegoofballrun.com, thegoofballrun.com. Tickets are on sale for all dates. So get those tickets now, because a lot of these places aren't huge rooms. So tickets, will sell, and they will sell out. So get those tickets now. You can go to thegoofballrun.com for all the information, the tickets, or just follow my socials. I'll be posting about it a bunch in the next 4 weeks, obviously. And the Paranormal Carnival, I didn't even talk about that. I didn't even tease it. I'm going to be doing a live stream show called the Paranormal Carnival. It's going to be wild. It's going to be fun. It's going to be more comedy than paranormal. It's still going to be all paranormal, but it's going to be, the focus of that show is going to be comedy. It's going to be humor. But if you've ever wanted a show where, like a late night show, where you can get like current event paranormal news, you can get interviews with some of the biggest characters in the world of the paranormal. Like, hey, I've got at least one Sasquatch I know who's going to come on the show. We're going to talk to Sasquatches. We're going to talk to aliens. We're going to talk to chupacabras even. Who knows? We'll have skeptics. We'll have the voice of reason. Maybe even Big Brother will come on to tell us why they protect us and keep us away, keep things and watch over us so much. Anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to also have other surprise guests on that show, plus interviews with real people from the world of the paranormal. So I'm very excited about that. I'll obviously let you know when I'll be running the first one. I'm still trying to figure out all the details and get all the technical stuff for that figured out. The Paranormal Carnival. I can't wait. The idea is that it's going to be a multi-night live stream show that I start doing at least twice a week in the future. That's the plan. Minimum once, twice, maybe. That's the goal. Because I've just had all these ideas for years, and I'm tired of trying to sell this show to a network. I'm just going to make it. That's the idea. I'm tired of that. You don't need permission to make something. You make it yourself. That's one of the things I've always done, and I don't know why I haven't been doing it with this particular idea. But okay, I love you. I hope you love yourself. And if I don't see you at the live shows coming up in December, and I'm at Wiley's Comedy Club in Dayton, Ohio, the 22nd and 23rd December. Those are going to be killer shows. So if I don't see you at some of these shows, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.